Welcome to the podcast about venture capital, where investors and founders alike can learn how VCs make decisions and reach conviction. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome back for another edition of Investor Stories. On this special segment, the experts describe the most important lesson that they've learned and how that has changed the way they invest. This is the special segment called Lessons Learned. On today's special segment, we have Chuck Warner of Ada Ventures. Chuck, can you tell us a story highlighting a critical lesson that has changed the way you invest?
Yeah, I think we've invested a lot in amazing technical founders who have just had the most incredible visions for the product, but actually have not known how to sell that product. And that is something that has led us into those founders not being able to raise money, not really having a sense for the business model and the value creation opportunity, not having a sense for how to build equity value to exit. And so now we look for commerciality in every single one of the founders that we invest in. They have to understand the levers of the business model and how they're going to package up and sell the product and ultimately sell the company as well.
On today's special segment, we have Findley of Iron Spring Ventures. Ty, can you tell us a story highlighting a critical lesson that has changed the way you invest?
I would say, without naming names, it's probably, again, back to the whole theme of the conversation, where call it the $20 to $30 million Series A rounds before there's really, product market fit proven and a hardened sales cycle motion. When you're selling into industrials, can oftentimes it really just gets you out ahead of your skis for these buyers are going to buy. And again, it goes back to, I think these corporates, as we think about it, right, they've really matured themselves around a lot of things, which are, call it cloud infrastructures hardened with data access policies that are more clear for startups to engage with, new partnership and channel resources willing to engage earlier with startups because they now have playbooks on how to do it. Pilot and demo opportunities are now better structured with clear budgets and KPIs to track progress and value creation, et cetera. Before all that maturity, a lot of these corporations were honestly experimenting and learning off the back of a lot of burned venture dollars. So I think all of these dynamics that maybe the last 5 years of putting venture into the ecosystem, corporates experimenting with these solutions, I think we're entering a new phase and an exciting phase to now start deploying capital. And it's why we launched Iron Spring this year. We think this is the right time. But back to your question, the lesson learned is I do think it has to be a more right-sized capitalization strategy than maybe where burn was put out ahead of its skis from some prior investments.
Seen it quite a few times myself. On today's special segment, we have Toney of Plexo Capital. Can you tell us a story highlighting a critical lesson that has changed the way you invest?
I would say, absolutely. I would say that a critical lesson that we have learned is the importance of information being able to, and not necessarily information contractually through information rights or through, a management rights letter that we add on as a side letter. It's more around just, the ability to build great relationships with the GPs and also the entrepreneurs. We were fortunate to get some information about one of our direct investments that, alerted us to some issues that we needed to address. And, thank goodness we had a great relationship with the GP and we're on a good cadence of communication to be able to access that information. I always say, and I learned this at GV, often people focus on the board seat as being the best way to make sure that they can have the access and ear of the CEO and understand what's happening. I would say that is definitely true when it comes to governance issues, obviously, which is one of the responsibilities of the board as fiduciaries. But I would say the other piece that is an important learning is, there's the ability to be able to have the ear of a GP or an entrepreneur without being on the LPAC, the Limited Partner Advisory Committee, which is kind of like a board for a GP, or on the board of an entrepreneur. Sometimes the GP or the entrepreneur might actually feel more comfortable if the investor can create a safe space to be able to interface with that person and get advice, more like a horse whisperer. So I would say that's definitely a learning. As you know, I've always heard that, but now that we've been putting it into place, I can actually see that.
On today's special segment, we have Byron Deeter of Bessemer. Byron, can you tell us a story highlighting a critical lesson that has changed the way you invest?
I think for me, it's mentorship around businesses. And I'll tell you, as an entrepreneur, I always was looking for smarter people than me to pull in as advisors, investors, executives, et cetera. And I think time and time again, when you get our CEOs together at an offsite or a group dinner or something, and they're just helping each other, and you get the publics, the Jeff Lawsons and Dan Springers and Toby Lutkes and Jen Tejadas around, and they're talking with our newly invested in or newly founded businesses and teams. What they're constantly saying is, you don't get extra credit for doing it alone. Like, there's no hero badge for making it extra hard on yourself. So learn from those around you and pull them in. And oftentimes people are just running so fast, they don't have time to really get true advisors or outside board members. They don't spend time in the YPO-like activities, the CEO forums and things. And as they get a few years into it, when they start doing it, they realize wow, that investment of an hour saved me 4 hours. The things that I learned from that just gave me the shortcut. It was the cheat code on how to hire a great sales exec, or how to manage engineering, or how to think through a financing step, or those sorts of things. And that's probably the part that I try to emphasize to our young entrepreneurs the most. And the interesting thing is, at times there's almost some anxiety that, hey, if I bring in people, maybe they'll be from the investor's perspective, there'll be more Bessemer people, and I'll lose control, or there'll be spies, or there'll be those dynamics. And I think that just goes back to the trust thing we talked about before, which is, this equity model is a beautiful thing. It aligns incentives very quickly. There's a short period of time where we're on the opposite side of the table, when we're just trying to figure out the value of those shares. And then we're a shareholder, usually a very early stage shareholder that looks very much like common. And so our goal is to maximize the value of those shares. And 99.9% of the time we are aligned, and it's all about how do we help you build a great business. And when you get in a rhythm where you've got that, you understand the needs and desires of the entrepreneur, you've got their trust that you're going to help them, fill those holes, then it's just a blast, because you're sending over customers and partners and employees and advisors and board members and folks that can help. And 70% of it they reject because they're moving fast and say, thanks, no thanks, put that on hold. 10% of it they say, that's interesting, I don't have time right now, can you run it down and front end that and let me know? And 20% of it they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I need today. Make that intro now. I will clear my calendar tonight to meet that person or do that thing. And you just get that. And I'm sure, Nick, you live this daily. That's the fun. And that's where I think if you get the entrepreneurs who are open to that mentorship from others, not from me, but from others, and you've got the trust where you know what they're looking for and they know you're looking out for them, then it's magic.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.